So, let's talk about the brainstem. For a lot of people, even folks in the medical field, this part of the brain can be a total black box, really confusing. But today, we're going to change that. We're going to crack it open with a simple, really powerful blueprint.
Quick question for you. If you had to pick the single most important part of your brain, what would it be? You might say the frontal lobe, right? The part that makes you, you.
Well, what if I told you the answer might actually be this tiny, almost ancient-looking stalk at the very base of your brain? This is the brainstem, and believe me, its small size is completely misleading.
We're going to think of the brainstem as the brain's ultimate control tower. It's the absolute, non-negotiable hub that keeps the entire system online.
Here's the best way to picture it. The brainstem is like the busiest highway interchange in the entire country. Every single signal for movement and sensation has to pass through it. But at the same time, it's also the central circuit board for all the stuff that keeps you alive without you even thinking about it.
Now, trying to understand all the wiring inside can feel like an absolute nightmare. But what if there was a cheat code? A simple little tool to make it all just click.
And here it is. It's called the Rule of Fours. It is an awesome mnemonic that takes all that complex wiring and neatly organizes it into just 2 groups of 4. Honestly, this is the key that unlocks the whole thing.
So here's the big idea. We're just dividing all the internal pathways into 2 groups. The stuff that runs down the middle, the medial structures, and the stuff that runs along the sides, the lateral structures. 4 of each. That's it. Simple, right?
Okay, let's start with the 4 medial structures, the ones in the middle. First up, you've got the main motor tract. That's the superhighway for all your voluntary movements. Then there's the medial lemniscus, which tells your brain where your body is in space. Next, we have the medial longitudinal fasciculus, or MLF for short, which is absolutely crucial for coordinating how your eyes move together. And finally, you have 4 specific motor nuclei for the cranial nerves that control your eyes and your tongue.
All right, now for the 4 lateral structures, the ones on the sides. You've got the spinocerebellar tract, which is all about sending coordination info to the cerebellum. Then the spinothalamic tract, which carries signals for pain and temperature. You've also got the spinal nucleus of cranial nerve 5, which handles sensation in your face. And last, the sympathetic fibers, which control things like sweating and making your pupils dilate. And that's it. 4 medial, 4 lateral. You've now got the core of the rule down.
Okay, so we've got the internal wiring sorted. Now, let's kind of zoom out and look at the external geography. We need to know the basic map of the brainstem itself.
And this part is wonderfully straightforward. The brainstem has 3 parts, basically stacked right on top of each other. At the very top, you have the midbrain. In the middle is the pons, which literally means bridge. And then at the bottom, connecting everything to the spinal cord, is the medulla.
And check this out. This is where you can see how the cranial nerves, which are like the brain's direct phone lines to the body, plug right into these sections. The midbrain takes care of nerves 3 and 4. The pons is a huge hub, handling nerves 5 through 8. And the medulla manages the rest, 9 through 12. This map is incredibly useful for figuring out exactly where a problem might be located.
So let's actually put our new blueprint to work. We can use what we know now to start decoding what happens when something goes wrong. And we'll focus specifically on the midbrain.
Now this is really cool. Look at how this table breaks down 3 classic midbrain syndromes. See how they all have one thing in common? A problem with cranial nerve number 3. But the thing that makes them different from each other is what else is affected. Is it weakness? Is it a coordination problem called ataxia? Or is it both? Seeing them side by side makes it so much clearer. So let's take a look at Weber's syndrome first. Here, the problem affects cranial nerve 3 and that motor tract we talked about. This gives you a 3rd nerve palsy on the same side as the lesion and weakness on the opposite side of the body. The cheat code here, the W in Weber's looks like a rotated number 3 for cranial nerve 3. Pretty handy, right?
Next up is Claude's syndrome. With this one, the damage is a little further back, so it still hits cranial nerve 3, but instead of hitting the motor tract, it gets the red nucleus. And the result? You basically swap the weakness for contralateral ataxia. That's a problem with coordination and balance.
And finally, we've got Benedict syndrome. You can almost think of this one as a combination of the other 2. The lesion is bigger, so it affects cranial nerve 3, the motor tract, and the red nucleus. On top of that, it often involves a structure called the substantia nigra, which adds tremors to the mix. A really memorable way to recall this one is the phrase, Pope Benedict has tremors.
So after all that, why does having this simple blueprint, this rule of fours, really matter? I mean, what's the big takeaway?
Because of this, for doctors, trying to figure out what's wrong in the brainstem can be a diagnostic nightmare. Just imagine a patient walks in with a droopy eyelid on one side of their face and weakness on the complete opposite side of their body. Is that one problem? Two problems? Where do you even begin to look?
And that is the entire point. With a simple framework like the rule of fours, that diagnostic nightmare turns into a solvable puzzle. A clinician now has a mental map to pinpoint the problem just by understanding the layout of the wiring. It turns a totally confusing mix of symptoms into a clear diagnosis.
In the end, it all just boils down to this. 4 medial structures plus 4 lateral structures equals one simple, incredibly powerful rule for understanding the brain's control tower.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? This whole method of using a simple framework to understand something really complex, well, it doesn't just apply to neuroanatomy. So it makes you wonder, what other complex systems in your world, maybe at work or just in life, are just one cheat code away from being totally understood?